Test. So yeah, looks like I'm good. Okay. I'm Phil Wyman, and this is the Wild Theology Podcast, where the world, the humans in it, and God are all wilder than we've been told.
That's your intro.
So, you'll get philosophy and theology and crazy stories that come from 30 years of pastoring,
Boring.
20 years of festival work,
Whatever.
and the mud and blood of wrestling with the living in spaces angels fear to tread.
Ooh, trying to sound interesting, are we?
Oh.
Yeah, you think you got something to say?
Yes.
Yeah, that's the problem, dimwit.
Look, I'm a lot smarter than you think.
Yeah, you tied your shoes this morning.
Whatever. We're Phil Wyman, and this is Wild Theology, where you get to argue with your own ideas.
And lose.
That's the point. If you would like to support this podcast, you can do so by going to patreon.com/Phil Wyman.
So this is Wild Theology Podcast number 38, and this one I am in dialogue with Jo Arnold. I've been staying with Matt and Jo for the last few days at their home in Pleasley in Nottinghamshire, and she works for the Church's Fellowship for Psychical and Spiritual Studies. That's a big, long mouthful, but it also sounds like, it really sounds like, wow, what is this?
Well, the Church's Fellowship for Psychical and Spiritual Studies, or just the Fellowship for short often, was set up just after the Second World War by a group of Christians in response to what they were finding from people in the churches who didn't know what to make of all the loss they'd suffered during the war, both wars. And the church wasn't providing any answers for them. So they took it upon themselves to get together to study the phenomena from both a theological and a scientific point of view, and to try to make sense and get to grips with what the Bible really says about life after death and about psychic mediumship and things like that, because a lot of that went on people trying to contact their lost loved ones. And they wanted to ground it in a proper theological way.
So post-World War II, people have lost husbands and sons, fathers, and is this coming about as a response to people who are having experiences, or is it a response to people who want to be able to communicate to loved ones they lost, or was it a little of both? What was going on?
Yes, I think a little of both, in that people were turning to mediums to try to make contact with the ones that they'd loved and lost. And the church was frowning upon it and saying, no, that's not the sort of thing we do. We don't try to contact the dead, and you need to stop that straight away. And of course, people weren't happy with that because they'd got so much bereavement that they needed to find some sort of answer to it. And the mediums were answering those questions.
So the church was losing influence in a society that was seeking answers.
Yes.
And this is a response to that. In a sense, it's like a trauma response.
I think in a lot of ways, yes, it is that people in churches really wanted to help the people who were hurting, and so they wanted to do something properly and based in the Bible, and to not give pat answers or answers that were just don't do it, it's of the devil.
Okay, so now I'm assuming that it probably over the years has expanded beyond, I want to know what happened to my son who died in war, into other phenomena of paranormal type experiences.
Yes, also a response, I think, to people who were reporting paranormal goings-on in their homes, especially poltergeist activity.
Right.
And as such, there were many people who were involved in deliverance ministry coming on to the fellowship as well to try and help from their point of view.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So for people listening, the experience of seeing ghosts or having a poltergeist experience, what would be the difference for on?
In terms of what people were experiencing, perhaps visitations from loved ones,
Right.
On the ghost aspect of it, and poltergeist activity being seemingly more malicious, and perhaps people would think that's more of demon activity
Right.
than of
Right.
the ghosts of people that had passed on.
Right. Okay. So in circles of dealing with this psychical experiences, when somebody references poltergeists, they're primarily talking about things that are malevolent or feel malevolent to them.
Yes, I think more research is done into the field. It's found that perhaps poltergeist activity is more a response or an energy given off by the person or people experiencing it, but certainly it's perceived to be malevolent.
Okay. I guess I would. The average person, the average Christian who's thinking about this, there's still going to be a lot of these questions that probably came up post-war. It's the 40s, the 50s. People are having these experiences. They're being told not to have these experiences or not to pursue them. But there are some fairly significant and influential Christians who are behind this group, aren't there?
Yes, we have patrons who are very well known. Former Archbishop of Canterbury, Dr. Rowan Williams, is one of our patrons. Scientist and author Rupert Sheldrake is also one of our patrons.
I love Rupert.
Yeah. So we have a lot of support from them as well. The author Susan Howatch, I think that's how you pronounce her name, she's also one of our patrons. So we do have influential people behind us and good Christians that support us.
Right, and you have there's theologians who are working in the field with the group. How does that work? I know there's a leadership, and I'm assuming that there's I know looking at the names of it, I can't remember right now, but it looked like there was some pretty robust scholarship that was behind this.
Yes, on our board of trustees we have clergy who are well versed in theological matters and debate and studies. We also have people from the academic realms who have studied this, obtained doctorates in it, and support it from a robust theological academic side as well.
Okay, so if I'm a Christian who has some kind of experience, I feel like my house is haunted or something like that. And I was to come across your website, what would it be that I might find that if I was to contact you and say, hey, help?
Well, because many of our members are from the Anglican churches, there's very little we can do in terms of going into situations and putting things to rest, because obviously for very good reasons there are Anglican hierarchy that have to be adhered to as we in that. But we will be able to put people in touch with their local deliverance teams. But certainly there is a listening ear. and an assurance that they're not mad and we are very much on their side.
Right.
Because whether it's real or imagined, the main thing people want is assurance, and to not be made to feel stupid. But we can also offer a lot of literature on the subject. We have quite a large library, all about the subjects that we come across and deal with.
Right.
We also have groups that meet across the country on a regular basis so that people can meet up with like-minded people to feel that they're not alone in these situations.
Right. So in a sense, it's like if somebody is either struggling or searching in this way, it'd be kind of like it's not quite a ghost hunters meetup, but it's in a sense it's at least a psychical study meetup group that they'd have.
Yes, so often when the groups meet, there will be a speaker on a certain topic, but also there's always time for fellowship and to listen to one another and to talk to one another and have that support. But it's not just people who have experienced ghosts or poltergeists. It's people who have psychic abilities themselves.
Right.
Very often that have found that the church has shunned them or turned away from them.
Right.
And while they still very much love God and are very much followers of Jesus, they don't feel welcomed or don't feel able to be who they are in their local church. And for them, this kind of support and this kind of group is invaluable to find other people that understand and affirm them as having gifts from God.
Yeah. Now, so I don't know if you have any examples or stories from that kind of thing of people who've felt that way, and then, like, I can imagine, because I see this all the time in pagan circles, somebody had some ability to hear or predict or would dream things through their life that would later come true, and then as in church life those things are rejected as being demonic, but these things never leave them. So they leave church and then they've ended up in neo-pagan circles because here was a place that it was celebrated.
Yes, we see that all the time. In fact, today I've been in touch with two different people. One is a woman I've known for a while who has been church warden in her local church and has had her own giftings that the church perhaps haven't understood. And she's spoken a bit to me today of how difficult she can find it and how difficult it is to talk about these things. And then today I've come across a friend of a friend who has only just heard about the fellowship, and she is really excited because she's had psychic gifts from a young age, gifts of mediumship, clairvoyance, clairaudience, things like that. And she's said that she doesn't feel she can be her true self in church, and the main reason she continues to go to church is because she doesn't want her daughter to leave.
Right.
So she goes for her, but she doesn't feel she can be who God created her to be within a situation where people aren't understanding her and are too ready to pull her gifts into disrepute.
Right. So when you say gifts of clairvoyance and mediumship, what is did she describe exactly how she was experiencing that?
Yeah, she said the main way is that she hears and smells spirits. So she didn't elaborate. It was just a conversation online. But she also dreams and interprets dreams. She paints, sort of a psychically gifted painting and things like that. So she's got an awful lot of gifts, healing as well, that she doesn't feel she can use for God.
Yeah, which is very interesting because in a number of certain, I guess in the U.S. it would be like third wave Pentecostal or neo-charismatic settings. I know a lot of people who experience gifts in a similar manner. And of course they've found a place for it in those circles, but in in too many circles, it's automatically looked at as demonic. And that would be the case even as some American Christians about those other, neo-charismatics. They'd say, they're just dabbling with the devil.
Yes. The really sad thing is that a lot of the gifts are recognised. You can hear the voice of God and it be quite acceptable, but to hear the voice of another spiritual being somehow isn't.
Right. Yeah. So this the group has been around for about 70 years.
Yes.
Started in the 50s. Excuse me. And today are you trying to expand the network of this?
I think the reaction I've had from this woman today just cements how necessary this work is. For a long time, the fellowship has operated quite under the radar, which is only to be expected because there has been a lot of backlash from established churches. But in the work that I do, the work that Matt, my husband, does, we come across these people all the time, and there's we've perceived a real need for groups like the CFPSS to exist, to provide support and encouragement. So it's time now to expand a little bit further.
Okay, so if somebody wants to get hold of you, how do they do that?
Well, we're on many social media sites. You can find us on Instagram, on Facebook, and on Twitter. You can Google CFPSS, or our website is www.churchesfellowship.co.uk, and emails can be sent that will come straight through to me, and we can help you from there.
Okay, so I know a number of people who struggle with this kind of stuff and don't know how it fits into the Christian worldview and into their Christian life. So hopefully they will contact you.
Great. We'd love to hear from them.
So this is Jo Arnold, and Matt's sitting on the other side of the room.
Hello.
And they've been wonderful hosts for me since I've been here. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
It's been really fun hanging out with you.
It's been great to be with you.
Okay. Pray for this family and what they're doing, because I think they're doing incredible things. And signing out till next time.
Thank you to my patrons who help make these missional travels and these podcasts possible. Without you, I couldn't do it. God bless you. If you'd like to support this project, you can do so here on Patreon for as little as $1 a release, and at the most, that's $4 a month.
Why on earth would anybody want to support us?
Well, I think we're pretty cool, and maybe some people believe in what we're doing.
Oh, come on, you believe that?
Yeah.
Don't you ever think you're just a little too weird for the average person?
Yeah, sometimes.